Om Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. So, today we are supposed to discuss something from the Gospel of Holy Mother, but as I had mentioned yesterday, our talk on mantra and japa yoga, or japa or mantra yoga, that was the topic. So this is the third talk in that series, and hopefully I'll be able to conclude these three series of three talks, because even in the life of Holy Mother, you find that she gave so much of importance or emphasis on the repetition of the holy name, or Japa, as it is known. Japa means repetition of the holy name given by the Guru. That is known as Japa in a traditional way. Repeating any holy name can also be Japa, but specifically when Holy Mother mentioned Japa Siddhi, she obviously referred to the tradition that is followed, where the ideas from Vedanta, yoga, Patanjali's yoga, and tantras. So all these ideas have been beautifully synthesized in the philosophy of Sri Ramakrishna, and also Swami Vivekananda, especially in his Raj Yoga. If you read that book, yesterday we discussed this point, you really don't know. I mean, you can expect a wonderful synthesis of these three systems. Though he discusses Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, but he does not restrict himself to Patanjali's yoga. The system, he based his teaching of the Raj Yoga on three very important schools of, or very practical schools of Indian philosophy. One is Vedanta. Of course, in London, he showed how Vedanta is practical. People thought Vedanta is a philosophical system to be understood, to be discussed, but very difficult to practice. But he removed all the doubts and he said Vedanta is practical, and if it is not practical, then it is not Vedanta. So along with his talks on practical Vedanta, he also published the book Raj Yoga, because he felt that he should not leave this country or the West without having one concrete book. So he has combined the three traditions in this beautiful book, Raj Yoga, which was one of the first early publications, which was simultaneously published from London and New York. So, and it was a book which he dictated. That is, we have in our Raj Yoga classes, we have discussed this. It was not a collection of his lectures like we have the Jnana Yoga, which he delivered in Piccadilly. Most of the talks, some were delivered in New York as well. But it's a combination of different talks he delivered during different gatherings he addressed. But Raj Yoga is a unique book because he asked his disciple to take down the notes in shorthand. He used to meditate for a long time. It's not that he thought about these things and then dictated. He just meditated on each of the sutras, and also the essence of Raj Yoga as he understood it, as he experienced it, not understood it intellectually. He experienced these truths, and whatever knowledge he got, the intuitive knowledge he got from his own experience, he dictated. That is why Miss Waldo, who took the, who was always keen to take these notes, always had to dip the pen in ink. In those days, fountain pens were not, they had to be dipped. The nib had to be dipped in ink, because she never knew when Swamiji will come out with some few sentences. He will just meditate, and whatever he spoke had to be immediately jotted down. So we should be thankful for Miss Ellen Waldo, who took upon herself the task of recording what he spoke. And that is how we have the entire book Raj Yoga, which was, of course, published in London first, and also there's a New York edition. It was simultaneously published. But anyway, the combination of Vedanta, the practical aspect of Vedanta, the practical aspects taken from the Upanishads, Vedanta as you find it in the Upanishads, the concept of Brahman, Atman, Prana. But he also discusses the idea of Purusha, which is somewhat similar to the idea of, not somewhat, it is the same as what Atman is in Vedanta, the Purusha or the pure consciousness in the yoga school. But to that he added the greatest contribution, we can say, this idea of prana he expanded, which was restricted in the Raj Yoga to just some breathing exercises to regulate the prana, the pancha prana as they are discussed in the Upanishads. But he extended that idea of prana to cover all forms of energy which were impinging upon the akasha and prana. So that is a wonderful generalization which laid the foundation for his beautiful book on Raj Yoga, on the system of yoga, which he called as Raj Yoga, the kingly science, the royal science, or the royal yoga. And to that he added the wonderful ideas of the Tantra philosophy. Tantra means technology. I've mentioned this many times. It's the technical part of spiritual life. Which has been designed in such a way that all these ideas can be practiced immediately, just as we have scientific principles. But when it comes to technology, they can be tested under different environments. You can test those principles. Then technology is something that works, which uses the science principles of pure science, but they have to work. They have to show that they work and that there is a difference. There is a transformation. Whatever we undertake, there is a transformation in knowledge, transformation in materials, transformation in so many things. So similarly, this mantra diksha tradition or japa tradition, japa, it is there in the theistic schools of Vedanta, which is also known as Dvaita. So they have taken these ideas, Dvaita Vedanta. There is Vishishta Dvaita, where also the repetition of the holy name achieves tremendous significance. But in most of the cases, it is to increase the devotion, the love towards the Ishta, or maybe to purify the mind, to remove the karma sanskaras, which are also mentioned in a subtle way in Patanjali's yoga. So, tapas swadhyaya ishvara pranidhana. Swadhyaya means to undertake a study of one's own self. So, in the tapas, in the kriya yoga, japa yoga can be included. But anyway, Swami Vivekananda's ideas of, or Holy Mothers, to be more precise, many people say that if you read the entire complete works, in very few places you will find the idea of japa discussed. But if you read all the other books, including Sri Ramakrishna's gospel and his great master, you take up Holy Mother's gospel, you will find everywhere this idea, do japa, japa siddhi. You can achieve everything through japa. And of course, if you go to Brahmananda and all the other disciples, you will find they are giving so much of importance. So it becomes all the more necessary, though some people may ask this question, why did not Swami Vivekananda? Because most of his talks, which you see, which have been recorded, were in the West, where this tradition was absolutely new. Though there is surely proof that he has initiated thousands of people in America also, and also in London, in the West. But specific instructions, if he has given them to some of the disciples, are not recorded. But if you see the other disciples, Swami Brahmananda was the first president, and Mahapurush Maharaj and all, and the vice presidents and vice presidents who are normally who carry down that tradition from Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, and Holy Mother, of course, has initiated a huge number of disciples, large number of disciples. Many of them who had approached Swami Brahmananda and Shivananda later on, Brahmananda mainly, and other direct disciples who were giving initiation at that time. But they said, we found some people where, I mean, we could not take the chance to initiate that because it is so difficult. We found that. So what we could not do, we just passed those aspirants to Holy Mother who without any, who she rarely refused anybody initiation. Whoever came in whichever situation, whatever be the mindset, she, that infinite power of or Shakti of Holy Mother manifested itself. Sri Ramakrishna was very happy. In fact, one of his chief disciples, who is also known as the Ishwar Koti, one who played an important role, these four Ishwar Kotis and Swami Vivekananda, in the divine Leela or drama of Sri Ramakrishna. Yoganandji was one who formally got initiation from Mantra Diksha from Holy Mother. So that is the tradition, and the same tradition is coming down to us to this day. So this idea of tradition, the Guru Parampara, it's not only in the Tantras, it is there in the Vedanta also. Shankaracharya says the knowledge that comes as a result, even the Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana in the Vedas and the Upanishads, which we find the Guru Shishya Parampara, Shankaracharya also, though he uses logic and tries to prove in different ways, finally he comes to the conclusion that is your knowledge based on some Guru Parampara. If it is there, then it is of use. Otherwise, no matter how much you study, it will not help. So he was the one who started, in fact, the tradition, which is coming down to these days, the Sampradaya, as it is known. It is not in a narrow sense that it is known as a Sampradaya, especially the Sampradaya of Sri Ramakrishna is one which it's a non-sectarian sect. It's difficult to understand this concept, but that is what Swami Vivekananda said. Beware of being a sect. Don't say this is our Sampradaya. It is a tradition, but it is non-sectarian in nature. So this is to be understood. So whatever traditions which the founders of this movement, especially Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Ma Sharda Devi and the direct disciples, because the tradition has started with them and then it is flowing down. So care has to be taken that all these things are following the tradition, the Guru tradition or the Guru Parampara as it is known, as Shankaracharya says. Whatever comes in a Guru Parampara, there is a less chance that it will be misunderstood. So you can't just, unless you are an adhikari or maybe unless you are a prophet yourself or a acharya yourself, you cannot start a parampara. So that is one thing you have to remember. So first, the goal to be attained through Diksha, the different stepping stones of progress, intermediate or proximate goals in Mantra Yoga or Japa Yoga, the methodology and rationale. We discussed all these things in great detail. I'll not go into. And the obstacles and the means to overcome obstacles. Now, coming to Holy Mother, she said something very significant. She says, see, every word you have to understand very carefully. When she says something, it is, I mean, she says with so much of care. She was never casual. You might see Sri Ramakrishna joking and making some fun, but Holy Mother was very serious. You will never see her in a very jolly mood. But she was not serious in that sense that she gave the feeling that she's at calm, at peace with herself, no matter what the external circumstances are. But at the same time, she was steady. So that kind of steadiness which comes as a result of mantra yoga or the japa yoga, as she once said, the easiest and the best way, you have to remember, she says not only the easiest but the best way. The easiest and the best way to solve all the problems of life. Now, when you say that, when you say the easiest and the best way to solve all the problems of life is to repeat the name of the Lord of Sri Ramakrishna, she adds to that. First, she says is to repeat Japa. She, of course, obviously meant Japa. To repeat the name of the Lord in silence. Now, there are many parts to these sentences. First, she says it is the easiest. But she doesn't stop with that. An easy path may not be so effective. Very often, you find that which is easy will not give you the desired result. So, the easiest path may not be the best path. People think that the best path is a complicated one. The easiest path is easy because you are not capable of doing anything better. You follow that. But she doesn't say that. She says it is not only the easiest but the best at the same time. That means she is consciously saying something which we have to take very, very seriously. If it was just the easiest, then we may think, oh, we are far superior people. The easy path, let novices follow. But she adds it is the best path at the same time. So if it is the best, that means it is better than the other paths. Now, the easiest and the best way to solve all the problems of life. Now, this is very important thing. Now, what do you mean by all the problems? Will it give me bread? Will it solve my the problem of hunger or something? I want to make money and all those things. Many things it may occur that we can use then if all the problems are solved. But what are the problems? That is very important. You may think it is a problem. So what appears to a person as a problem is really not the problem. So if you think success in life or having a career is a big problem, yes, it is a problem for people who think that is the goal of life. But it's not a problem for others who think that is not the ultimate goal of life. It may be a smaller. So depending on that, all the problems when she says of life, it would be a misuse of the japa if it is used to solve a problem which when it can solve higher, bigger problems. It is like you have a golden axe made of pure gold. You don't use it. Iron axe is enough to cut wood. You don't use you don't go and buy a golden axe to cut wood. So misusing mantra japa for smaller things is just like you have been given a golden axe and the best use of that golden axe is to go and sell it in the market and be rich. But if you use it for a purpose which is lower than what it is meant for, gold is not meant to be used as a weapon or as an axe. It is something like that. So this point, after understanding this point, we yesterday discussed, I just repeated this because it is a very important point we have to understand. Then we saw that rhythmic, yesterday we had an elaborate discussion how rhythmic repetition results in verbal pranayama, and that japa, when it is spontaneous, it enables the kundalini or the power of kundalini to rise in the, we will not discuss again, you know what kundalini is. So it passes the nervous currents, they pass through the sushumna, the central canal, and as it passes, that nervous energy passes through that sushumna, one becomes more and more free from the gross bondage. He becomes more and more subtle. And when he comes to the heart center, which we discussed, the center from where we begin our spiritual practices, the center of consciousness. Now we are conscious of the body, we are conscious of the prana, we are conscious of everything, and that's not going to go. We have to be conscious. We are always conscious of the body till we reach samadhi, where it really doesn't matter whether you have a body or not. But till then, we are conscious. But we have a greater consciousness of the higher things. We are more conscious of the mind than the prana. We are more conscious of the buddhi than the prana. We are more conscious. We are living more our awareness of the heightened awareness when we find the heart center. Truly, when we find the center of our consciousness, which is the anahat or the heart center, the eight petal lotus, as I said, that is when you are fully established. It's not that finding, once you find it, then the matter is over. No, we have to be established in that consciousness. Then what happens? That is what this next topic will be. That when that happens, as a result of constant rhythmic repetition of the mantra. Now I am not coming to the visualization, we'll come to it later. There, as I told you, there are two parts. One is the visualization part of the mantra, another is the repetition, the shabda and artha, the nama and the rupa. So both have to be done together, and we also discussed the idea of the cotyledons, two cotyledons, which is known as the bija and what bija does. But here, what happens, when the mental repetition, we also discussed the four things. We will not discuss it again because it will be just repetition. The vaikhari, when the sound is produced, the madhyama, we know, where the sound production is just before it is physically uttered. When two objects strike, the air strikes the palate and the lips and other things, it is the final stage of sound. But before that, there is that sound already in your mind. Then before that, deeper still, the Tantra said there is a Pashyanti state. The grammarians also believe in this sound reproduction. And the Bija represents this third stage. We discussed that also. And the Bija has two cotyledons, the Shabda and Artha. Our thinking is based on the repetition of the name and the meaning behind meaning of that particular meaning, the artha, the meaning of that particular name which we utter in our minds. So we are asked in most of the japa sadhana, a mantra is there and you meditate on the Ishta Devata. We came up to this point. Now, as I said, the goal of japa yoga is to reach the para state, which we said is represented by the pranava or the greatest bija, which is Om. So the bija which follows Om, it helps you to reach the para state. Pashyanti state, or the third stage of utterance, the mental repetition, is reached by the power of the bija. We discussed that. And finally, Om is the power, the Ishvara on whom we are meditating. Ishvara is the personal aspect of the God on whom we are meditating. The impersonal is Brahman, and when he assumes a personal form or a transcendental and a all-pervading, you can say, Antaryami, he is the Ishvara. So when you implant the divine name in the depths of the unconscious, we discussed that it controls the samskaras. How does it work actually? It controls our samskaras and purifies the mind. Why that is necessary? It is necessary because the samskaras are pulling us down towards the gross. The gross actions that we do, which is beyond the control of our buddhi. We want to do something. As Duryodhana told Sri Krishna, he said, I know what is good, but I can't help it. I can't do. I know what is dharma, but I can't do it. I know what is adharma, but somehow my mind and willpower and my buddhi, they gravitate towards the adharma, that is evil. So the japa, one of the main functions is to go and purify the mind at the level of the unconscious. Our certain aspects of our sanskaras which are not even known to us. We are surprised when they come out. They are in a deeply embedded in our tendencies, inherent tendencies. That is what samskara is translated as. You say that this person has this samskara. So periodically he is doing the same mistake again and again because of the samskara. So he is a victim and he is under the control of his samskara. So that control of the unconscious mind over the conscious or mind which is buddhi, that purification process is what the divine name is supposed to do. So now we have to understand that every conscious japa, we discussed yesterday that unconscious japa will not help. It has to be done with full awareness, full intensity, and every time conscious japa creates a positive samskara, and the quantity of spiritual samskaras in your the baggage of karma that is there, it increases. And then we also discussed that the mind, when it must vibrate in tune with the devatas vibrations. So this nama which you repeat, the name and the nami, that is the ishta or the personal god who is represented by this name. So when these two combine, there is a psychic resonance, and that is when we say the grace of the Lord flows. So mantra makes that happen. Mantra helps through that resonance. You resonate with the vibrations of the divine. What else do you want? It is as it were you are giving the control of your chariot to the Lord. That is the symbology used in Bhagavad Gita. What did Arjuna do? He said, I don't know what is good for me. My mind is so restless. You take care of the chariot. You become the buddhi. You become the ruler or the person who runs the chariot of my life. I do not know. I do not even know where I am going towards, whether what I am doing is right or wrong. I don't have an awakened buddhi. So when the Lord becomes your charioteer, that is when the psychic resonance is established through mantra. Is that thing, that vibration of the mantra is one which brings your mind, your impure mind or your incompetent mind in resonance with the devata's mind or devata. So it is like devata is giving himself to you. That's why yesterday also I mentioned the bhakti singers, who were panting for a vision of the divine. They said, I don't care. If you don't want to give me your vision, I don't care, because I know I have your name. My guru has given your name. I will be happy. I will be continuously repeating that name. And because the Nami, you are embedded in the name. So when I repeat the name, I already have you. So I don't care for the vision. Now, but the vision, the visualization is important. So we get the vision, the transcendental experience of that Devata. For us now, Sat, Chit, Ananda, Brahman, they are all empty words. But we have to have this basic faith that the japa will lead to that transcendence. When the grace, when there is a psychic resonance, our minds are in resonance with the not only the image or visualization, but the name also. So some kind of, as you said, a rhythm, the rhythm enables this resonance between the jiva and the devata. But it has to be done. What makes that happen is an intense prayer. If your japa is done as a prayer, that is why when you do japa, you just don't do it mechanically. I will do this and then the japa will give me the result. And you don't involve your emotions at all. That is not how it is. If we have the power of thinking, we have a power of willing. Willpower is required to repeat the japa continuously. But you should not be arrogant to think that I have done so many millions of japa and with that I shall. That is what some of the worshippers who later on turned evil, the tapasya, all the demons, if you see in Indian mythology, they were all people who thought by the force of the name, divine name, this japa, sadhana, we can have our selfish desires fulfilled. And they came to grief later on. So, that intense yearning, we have a faculty in the mind that is known as emotion. So, that intense yearning to reach the highest, along with the faith in the capacity of the Nama to reveal the Ishta, is what is required. Then there is resonance. So, next we come to we have to understand that once we concentrate on the Ishta Devata through visualization and also repeat the mantra rhythmically, what we do, actually we are doing, what is happening to our personality is the psychic energy that is normally wasted in an ordinary human being through Ida and Pingala passes through that small amount of Kundalini which is lying. Kundalini means the psychic power. So, the small amount of Kundalini is now at the base of the spine, it rises. This is the esoteric significance. If you call it esoteric, there is nothing esoteric, but the rhythmic chanting of the mantra, the purpose behind this is this. And any mantra, technically speaking, any mantra can do it because each mantra has a bija and a devata connected with that. And some schools believe that only by repeating the pranava or the main bija, om, even that rhythmically can be that kundalini can be roused. In fact, that was the ancient universal mantra accepted in India. Just repetition of om, whichever sect you belong to, we can get the same result. If we can get the same result with om, then why not be satisfied with that? That would be the question. Sir, I don't want a deity, I don't want a bija, I am happy, I'll just repeat om and see where it leads me. The reason is, one of the goals, this is the intermediate goal, as I said. In the beginning also we said, there is an ultimate goal, there is an intermediate goal. So Upasana that we do is not merely awakening of the heart center, which we discussed, the Pratyagatman, the center of consciousness, which is the first stage when one should not get stuck there. That is why it is called Upasana, sitting near the deity, placing him inside and awakening him. Upasana is definitely not the awakening of the self. That is just the first step. The main purpose is to realize the true nature of the Devata. That is the true purpose of the mantra. There can be intermediate goals, the awakening of the self, trying to understand what the spiritual heart is. That is definitely the beginning of sadhana, but the main purpose is to realize how do we realize that? By resonance, the nami and nama, the name and the form on which we are meditating, when they resonate with each other, the form or the real self, the real Ishta Devata, the entire consciousness or the power of the Ishta, it is known as Devata Samprapti. Samprapti means realization of the, when a ordinary bhakta says, I want to have a vision of my Ishta, I want to see him. What does he mean? That means that he has to see the Devata. How can you see if not through the eyes? When Arjuna asked Sri Krishna that he wanted to see his real form, said, I see you as my friend, you are my charioteer also, but I know that is not your real form. Show me the real form. That is why we do Upasana. We know Sri Ramakrishna, very loving person. We read the gospel, try to imagine, oh, if Sri Ramakrishna was here, how he would have behaved with us, how we would talk to him. So that is the initial aspects of sadhana. But we should not be satisfied, because that may be an intermediate goal to uh, help us in our spiritual progress. But the main purpose is to know the realization of the Devata. Devata means in our case, or in any Ishta, the Ishta Devata. Not any Devata. There are so many secondary gods also, which might give us some power. There is this god of fire, god of water. There are hundreds of deities. So those deities will give you what they are capable of. But if you consider the Devata whom you are worshipping as the representation or the personification of the Sat Chit Ananda Brahman, then you get the highest, the realization. So the Kathopanishad says that all that we see, what do you mean by the Ishta Devata? What is a ordinary Devata? First, let us start with that. So it is a conception of a superhuman being living at a particular plane of consciousness. There are different layers of consciousness. First, you are conscious of the material universe around you. Then you become, when you are a little more thoughtful, you are conscious of the vast forces that are manipulating this universe or running this universe. Then you become more subtle. Then you say that it's the intellect of man that is discovering and controlling these forces. So you know that the mental force is far superior than the prana. Man does not leave everything to prana like animals do. He takes control of the prana, uses it the way he likes. So this, as the consciousness rises, there are different planes of consciousnesses, and each one is presided by a deity. That is the idea behind the millions of gods that we have. When you want the consciousness, when you worship somebody, when you worship Saraswati, when you worship different gods and goddesses with specific characteristics, you intend to have knowledge, para or apara, both vidya you want. Therefore, you worship the deity Saraswati or any other. Though all the deities ultimately are supposed to lead to the highest, but there are intermediate needs of human beings. So Upanishad says the whole creation, the whole universe, in fact, is nothing but vibrations. And the Kathopanishad specifically says that all that we see in the whole universe consists of nothing but prana. And this prana are different types of this. There are different types of prana at different level. That is what Swamiji mentions in the Raj Yoga. Different planes of prana in increasing order of their subtlety. That vibration is known as spandana. So the power of every devata, like you see, for example, it's a very crude example, but say you have these radio waves. So it is radiating in all the directions. Now the specific radio, say for example, the channel BBC, it is radiating some kind of radio waves, specific radio waves. Not all channels or not all television or radio stations are emitting this radio waves. Each one is emitting its own radio waves. So every devata radiates a type of vibration. And everybody who is receiving this, like every radio that is receiving, he is also receiving these things. So everything that you find around us, as I told you, if you read the 3-piece article on vibrations by Ashokanand, he has explained all those things. It's a very long talk of his, which has been divided into 3 parts, and we have discussed that. So we find that whether it is the receiver or the radio station, both are resonating with these vibrations. Only if the good radio receiver will absorb these vibrations. So we find it is a very natural phenomena. If you see, it is a very natural phenomena which we see. So even this is just one example I'm giving you, but even if you take heat, for example, Heat also emits certain vibrations of heat. So many of the intrastellar objects like stars, they not only uh, emit light waves. Those who know physics, they know that it not only emits light, it is emitting heat, though we may not feel it because they are so far. Light travels more than heat, but also it emits radio waves. So there are different levels of vibrations, and that is how these radio waves, by studying this radio telescope and all those things, they don't have to see the star. The radio waves that are emitted from a distant object tells us what kind of star it is, what is its intensity. So there are this idea of prana is a kind of vibration. So similarly, I gave you these gross examples because we have to understand what these devatas are, why there are so many devatas. Just as we have different radiations, heat, light, sound, they are all vibrations of different intensity. So there is something which emits it and something which catches it. That's the science. That is the philosophy and science behind the mantras and the visualization. We'll come to that later, but let us now think of sound as the vibration. So when you go to a temple, you find that what happens actually? Why do you feel elated? Why do you feel spiritually uplifted? Because there the vibrations of the devata, because so much of thinking has been done. If you go to Belur Math, for example, every day Khandana Bhavabandhana is sung with or without attention, awareness, but there are many people who have been intensely thinking on the different aspects. It's not just a prayer. If you see, there's a big book written on the meaning that we want to hear all these things. And as a piece of music, we enjoy it. But no, how many of us try to understand what it means? If you repeat it with that understanding, then those vibrations are created in that place. So even if you don't know the meaning, a day will come if by constant repetition. You don't know the meaning of what is being sung, but the vibrations will impact you. So it's like some Thakur used to say, whether you jump into the Ganga or somebody pushes you, you will get wet. So that is how the vibrations of the Devata. So even an unwilling person, he is forced to go to the temple. For example, he may not benefit as much as the willing person, but he will be in fact taking with him some of the vibrations, which may work after some time. That is why we have these places of, it is known as Tirtha. But this Tirtha has to be kept, it has to always be kept, it has to be rejuvenated. That is why we have this idea of preserving. Even the tooth of Buddha is preserved in Sri Lanka. Just one tooth, because that tooth has, people know it is full of vibrations. It is none else than the Buddha who is there in that small tooth or whatever relic is there. That's the idea. What happens when the relics are worshipped? Why do we keep it in a particular place? Or all the things associated. If you see, go to Belur Math, there is a museum. Sri Ramakrishna's clothes, Sri Ramakrishna, they are not just objects. They have been suffused with the power of the Ishta Devata or the Devata whom we worship. And that unconscious, even the unconscious vibrations, they act as powerful transmitters of these vibrations. So when we repeat the mantra consciously, I'm talking, these things are unconscious impact that is created when you go to such places. But when you repeat a mantra, you are putting yourself in a tune with a particular vibration, which is connected with the Ishta. Nothing in the mantra is insignificant. That resonance has to take place. It may take time because we may not be very particular, but a day will come when there is a constant undercurrent of the mantra. and it will act in such a way, even without our knowledge, it will help us to, it will transform us. All these things happen in the unconscious, so people don't appreciate that. But one should have the patience to repeat it. So that particular spandana or vibration, which is associated with the mantra, and it represents a deity whose name we are uttering. It is, but that whole thing is compressed into a very powerful part of the mantra, which is known as bija. Now, this bija is not a thing which is arbitrary. It's not like any other alphabet. It is a time-tested power capsule, you can say, which creates a vibration similar to that of the deity. It's like tuning your radio. If you don't go to that exact station, it won't catch the vibrations. So when you repeat the bija mantra, your mental vibrations, at least at that time, when the mental repetition is going on, they vibrate, if it is done properly, of course. It will vibrate with that of the Devata or the Ishta or the god whom it represents. The bija. Bija is specific to one Ishta. You remember, you should remember that. It's not an arbitrary sound which you just utter. It is a sound, or it is a bija mantra is something, bija, the seed is something which the founder of the tradition or whoever has given the mantra, they have realized this in the depths of their meditation. Unless it has come in a very intuitive way through a Guru Parampara, it will not, you can't read this bija from a textbook or any book. Nowadays, everybody seems to be reading from the books. It won't communicate the same idea because it is not power packed. It has to be communicated. Sound has to be communicated in the form of sound. That is why our entire tradition in India is a oral tradition. There are, even today, there are some Gurukulas where books are not permitted. The precise reason is when it is written down, when it is becomes, they lose their power. It is the sound symbol, whether it is a Vaikhari sound or a Madhyama or a Pashyanti or Para, the different stages of sound that we discuss. The subtler the sound, the grossest is the least powerful. But for that reason, it is definitely not to be dispensed with. Because we are gross, we have to go through that channel from the outer Vaikhari sound to the, we saw how Madhyama just precedes that. And if we start with a subtle sound, then the vibrations, the bija helps us to resonate with the deity whose representation is the bija. They are condensed in that. There are power capsules that open, and their slow communication is established. Slow, it is a very, very slow process. We should not expect, unless we are endowed with a wonderful sensitivity, the moment you hear the bija, but we have to just awaken the, you say, they call it, we have to infuse prana into that. Verbal pranayama, as I said, by constant repetition, some kind of the bija, the mantra gets awakened. As Sri Ramakrishna said, Tumadir Chaitanya Hok, means you realize your Ishta as the pure Chaitanya. Because only then the purpose of the bija is served. So most of the mantras, they contain a bija mantra because it is in accordance with the study of sound symbols of the tantras. So bija is a specific contribution of realized souls who practice the tantra upasana and saw these bijas. Thakur says, many of the bijas, so many times I have seen them in as bright light, as bright shining alphabets. what we hear, or sometimes it comes in the form of sound. Even when there is nobody uttering, they hear that subtle sound. So that much power is there in the bija. So next we come, every mantra has 4 parts, as I told you. Now we come to the basic elements of mantra. One is Om, as I told you. It stands for the Akhanda Satchidananda, the goal which we are ultimately supposed to reach. The infinite Brahman, of which every Devata is a part. So Sri Ramakrishna used to give a beautiful example. See, these concepts are mere words. If you go to the texts, they really don't. If you just go to the book, you see the power behind gospel. He says, Sri Ramakrishna used to give a beautiful example. That which took scholars hundreds of years, thousands of years to explain, how can the formless become one with form? That never, even Master Mashe was confused. He believed in a formless God. Brahmo Samaj told him God cannot be with form. It is like limiting that God. God is always formless. And they blindly accepted it. But for the first time when he came, Sri Ramakrishna said God can be both with form and without form. Then Master Mashe thought, logic, I can't understand this logic. If one is without form, how can he get a form? So immediately Sri Ramakrishna, not immediately, in some other place, he gives a beautiful example of ocean and the ice. Is ice not water? Then how does water become ice? The ocean, Satchidananda, is infinite. Infinite. Say if we take this example, a beautiful example of Satchidananda infinite, but it is condensed here. How does it condense? How does water condense or not condense? How does water solidify if there is intense cooling? So what is this cooling? It is the emotional or the bhakti of the bhakta, of the person who is worshipping Ishta. He says, I don't care for the formless God. I know my formless God has taken the khanda. So God assumes various forms, just as the cooling effects of the bhakta's devotion converts that formless reality into form. So the infinite is known as akhanda. There are two beautiful, Sanskrit is such a nice language. Akhanda means that which cannot be divided. It is infinite. Khanda means the finite. So the akhanda, that is why Om is given that highest status. It's the greatest bija. Akhanda, or that which is not divided. So the first manifestation of sound is represented by Om. And the khanda is represented by the deity's name. So deity is a doorway to that infinite, whether it is Krishna, Rama, Shiva. But how does this akhanda become khanda? It is because of the bija which connects them. The connecting link between the finite, that is the name Rama, Krishna, Shiva, all these things which come after the bija, and Om which is before the bija, they are connected. That connecting link is the bija. That is the idea. And the bija stands for that particular creative power, the radiating power of the deity. So bija, which is the special power in the mantra, it has a special status and a power. It is known as, in the Gita, it is known as Vibhuti, the glories of the Lord, Vibhutis of the Devata. A part of that Vibhuti lies in us. That is why we meditate the Lord in the heart. If he is outside, the Vibhutis are outside, then what do we gain? He has to be inside. So when the bija is uttered, that which is in us, that same power, a very, very, very infinitesimally small power it may be, but it is still there because we are part of that whole Ishvara. Nobody is not, if the Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Riddeshe Arjuna Tisthati. That is a beautiful verse in the Gita. Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Riddeshe. Riddeshe means in the center of consciousness, which is the spiritual heart. Sarva Bhutanam means in all, whether it's a dog or an animal or anything. Any Bhuta means that which is manifest. So what you see around you, he is there. In some people he manifests more, some people he manifests less. That is why we don't see it. So a part of that vibhuti, the glorious power, the bija awakens that little power which is within us. If there was no power within, if the Lord was not in the as Arjuna says, as Krishna tells Arjuna, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Riddeshe, he is already there, but he is not manifest. That is why we don't see him, that is why we don't perceive him, that is why we don't manifest him. When we manifest him, when we resonate, the bija helps you to establish the link between Om, which is the formless, and the name, which is the form. So the bija connects. So that is why they say bija represents the process of creation. That which was formless took a form. Unfortunately, it took a form of, say, John, Jack, Jill, anybody. And when that creation formless becomes a form, what happens? We come to the basic premise of Buddhism. The only result of a formless becoming a form is sorrow. So the bija is, when you utter, you are reversing the process and removing all the sorrow in which is within you. You don't know how that sorrow comes, but it is there. Because when the akhanda becomes khanda, definitely, if you are a king and then you are suddenly made into a asked to resign and come and become a soldier, ordinary soldier, from akhanda you have become khanda. You have become with form, or you have assumed a form, personal form. I'm not talking of the devata, but devata will, that form is such a great vibhuti of the devata, it will take us to the formless. But I'm talking of the little selfish ego which gives us a stupid individuality. Once when Swami Vivekananda was asked, Swami, you talk of this formless God, this ocean where we have too much, what will happen to our individuality? So Swamiji was terribly upset. What a stupid individuality you want to preserve. What have you achieved in life? Even if you are an emperor, it is still stupid. Your individuality is still trivial compared to the glory of the Lord. So why? What is the fun in holding on to a individuality which even people don't appreciate? Even the biggest emperor, there are enemies. So why are you so keen? Why are you people so keen to hold that individuality? If you can have that universal individuality, imagine the power and glory that is associated with that individuality, that I am Brahman. So what achievement can give you greater glory than that? So the vibhuti of the devata is what is revealed to us. Then we feel proud that we don't need anybody to make us happy. We have found our true individuality. We are happy in Thakur or happy in the Ishta who is seated, and we the closer we go, the more pride. It's not a kind of pride, but we feel that fulfillment. Oh, this is what we are. And all the while we were that, but now the world has hypnotized us and told us that you are such and such, you are great, or you are a small wave or a big wave. But all the same, this wave will collapse and die one day. But why not become the ocean? So all these Jnana Yoga talks which Swamiji gave, he spoke of the real man within us and the apparent man, which is what we think we are. So the bija is the link between the form and the formless. This is what you have to remember. So each Shakti, each power is represented by the bija mantra. Rama, Vishnu has a bija mantra, Durga has a, they are different deities. They have the different paths, you can say. You may ask why so many deities? Because each one has a particular liking for a particular deity. So each one has a different bija also. So the Om and the bija, just as some may like a car, but there are many cars, each one has a different key. You can't use one key to open the other car. So the Om is the formless, it's a representation of the formless reality. Bij and the name of the Ishta is the reality which is with form. And what is the connection between the two? It is the bija. So Om, the bija, or the bija mantra or bija is, and the name of the deity. These are the three parts of the mantra normally. But there is also a fourth part. For example, in Om Namah Shivaya or Om Namaha. Namaha is very often used as the fourth part. What does it do? It indicates the aspirant's attitude towards the Devata. It is just, but it is important. We should not just think it is also a part of the mantra. It may not be as important as Om, Bija and the name of the Lord, but unless you have a particular attitude towards the Devata, your emotional part of your personality will not be utilized. You will be using your willpower to do the japa. You might even use the understanding to understand the japa, but what about the emotions? Why not utilize that power of the mind? You have an emotion. No person, unless he is a brute or a hard-hearted person who has, they say, they has a heart of a stone, which will never, I don't think anybody who comes to spiritual life has that. Even the greatest Jnani, they say, had a wonderful heart of Shankaracharya. Buddha had such a rational person, but Swamiji says he had the biggest, most compassionate heart. He would even sacrifice his life for a goat, to save a goat. So the fourth part of the mantra, and we'll close here. We have already exceeded the time. We still need a few more classes, and I hope we will try to discuss as much as possible. There is a fourth part of the mantra which explains which reminds us of our attitude towards the Devata. Namaha means I bow down, I surrender to that Lord. He is the Ishvara, he is a form. I don't know what his real form is and where this Om or the Bija and the mantra, where it will lead me. But I know one thing, the Namaha reminds you that I don't have that responsibility. He will sit and he will do. It is just like the owner of the chariot says, I don't know, you know the way, you are the driver, you take me wherever you want. That Namaha is like that attitude. So the master of the vehicle, means one who is traveling, he can relax. He can even sleep. So now you say Namaha and then let him do the rest. Believe in God and let him do the rest, because you have faith in that driver who is running your chariot, the buddhi, where he is seated and he is controlling the vehicle. So that is why there are beautiful songs in Bengali. We'll discuss that some other time. Shakali tomar ichha mohi tara tumi, tomar karma tumi koroma, loke bole ami kori. Means everything that is happening is your play, you are doing it. And these foolish people think we are doing it. Tumi yantra, ami yantra, tumi yantri. I am the instrument, you are the one who is driving that instrument. I am just, by foolishness, I should not think that I am running. It is not me who is running, you are running the whole show. So that is represented by the words like Namo, Namaha, and all those words. If you see, they are the fourth part of the mantra, which indicates the aspirant's attitude towards the Devata, the spirit of surrender. So the mantra has four parts. Om, a bija, a Devata whose name is represented by the form that you meditate upon, whichever Devata it may be, Krishna, Rama, Shiva. And fourth is your relationship. That completes the whole mantra. So, but there is one important thing you have to remember, and I'll close. How does a child, a young child, or a dumb man, take for example a child who is not yet learned to speak, or a dumb man wants to express a wish. Say he sees a flower and he wants it. So there is artha and jnana. He wants because he knows this flower is a beautiful thing, I want it. He doesn't seek anything and everything. In order to express that relationship, a third something is necessary. Now, in your mind, you know you have an artha, you have an object outside. Flower is there. And you have the knowledge of flower. The flower is beautiful smell. You know it. But how do I tell? Unless you tell people, unless you articulate, I want that flower, that shabda, the language is the expression of that relationship. So people speak in different languages. They go for shopping and ask for the same cloth or the same thing, but they will ask in different ways, provided the salesman knows many languages. You will go and ask for a coconut and ask in French, another person will ask in Spanish. So different symbols, they express the same idea. So mantra is a language which expresses a relationship, that is namaha, I salute or I sacrifice, I surrender. Only when that last part of the mantra is there, the whole sentence becomes complete. Otherwise, the first three parts, the Om, which is the pranava, then the bija and the name of the Lord, it doesn't make a complete sentence. Only when you add that last portion, that I surrender to you, that is when the whole meaning of that whole sentence, it makes sense. So this is the whole idea behind the mantra. Of course, there are other aspects, the visualization, but we don't have time now. So it is, mantra is just like a key. Now, to summarize, mantra is like a key which opens the door of a room of light. We do not know, we just know. If I open this door, I'll get light. The meaning of mantra lies in its consciousness. Consciousness is represented by this light. Right now, the door is closed, but I just go on knocking and trying to open. But finally, when it opens, then the light of consciousness reveals it. And one has to remember that these keys are not artificially created. A key may be artificially created, but these mantras are keys which have come from the highest intuitive experience of, that is why they are known as bijas. So sages who had the actual vision of the Ishta, the Devata, mantras are symbolic meanings which are existing in the cosmic mind. They are not stupid imaginations of a mind which is not trained. It has to be a very intuitive mind which has become one with the Mahat or the Hiranyagarbha, it is known. The sum total of the subtle bodies, the minds of the different individuals, the sum total is also known as Hiranyagarbha. That is the sum total of the minds. So the purified heart of the rishis, that is the condition. When they sufficiently purify by themselves doing some sadhana, japa, these bijas have flashed. Whether it is Sri Ramakrishna, whether it is Holy Mother or Swamiji, the other gurus of the order, these bijas which have come down in a tradition, and the mantras, of course, with the addition that is there at the end of the mantra, they come only when the mind is sufficiently purified. And when one repeats the mantra with yearning, when that happens, then that mantra becomes charged. It not only becomes rhythmic, awakens the kundalini, but it becomes charged. And that mantra is living. If a child repeats it, if he has not repeated enough number of times, if that mantra, then it is useless. It is just like saying table, table, table. It will not give you anything. Or a chair, chair. You just go on repeating. That rhythmic repeating will not awaken the kundalini. It has to be a charged mantra. It has to be done with a certain minimum purity of mind. That is why many people say, I've been doing japa so much. So many people asked Holy Mother, I have done so much, why nothing is happening? But they don't realize that the first stage has to be finished. The He has to be awakened. The consciousness, the base, the center of consciousness has to be awakened. So anyway, when the repetition becomes rhythmic, we have to understand it awakens that consciousness. And the higher vibrations of the Devata, they come, and when you get the signals of the radio, then the sound comes. Till then, you have to go on tuning. So that is what we are supposed to do. So we'll continue in the next class. And if there are questions, I don't think there are, but one question is there. I'll just take that question. Giovanni is asking from Italy. Uh, I'm very happy that every day he comes up with a question. Very nice. So the question he has asked, I'll just answer this, and tomorrow we will. Not tomorrow is, of course, we have a retreat. So I have sent you, just before I forget, I have sent you a message on WhatsApp. All of you who are on WhatsApp, all of you are definitely on WhatsApp. Otherwise, you would not have attended this. You should see that the link that I have sent last, the recent link, is the correct one. The previous link, there was a mistake. If you click on that, you will not come into the Zoom meeting. And you have to also remember one thing, the Zoom has a capacity of only 100. So once that is filled up, at a particular time, there can be only 100 people. So if we have more than that, you don't worry. I will be soon sending a link to our YouTube live YouTube channel of our Vedanta Center, where we normally simultaneously it will be live on that YouTube. So in case the Zoom is full tomorrow, when we start with Dattu's bhajans, then we have 2 talks by 2 Swamis. After that, if for some reason 100 is over, then you can watch. Of course, you can't ask questions as you ask in Zoom. YouTube also you can ask, but I don't think it will be possible to answer. You may ask in chat. YouTube, of course, you can ask, but it will not be live. We may not be able to answer them. But at least those who attend, and I'll quickly answer this question, which Giovanni is asking. If the person that is attracted to a specific deity or vibration, or is it like the deity that attracts the person, or both? If, for instance, I feel attracted to Lord Shiva and the bija, does it come from within me? Is there an unconscious reason for it? Yeah, there are 2 ways. Either it is your own choice, or it is, you can say, it is decided for you by your guru. If you should have faith either in yourself or in the guru. Either way it works. Some people don't know what exactly they should be choosing because they don't have any ishta. Such people are lucky because they will say, now you choose for me. If that is the case, things become more easier. But if you think that you have a specific ishta in mind, then you will have to go to a guru who will give you that mantra. Because you have to remember, all the traditions do not give all the mantras. There are specific mantras, deities, whom they feel is a preferred way of sadhana. But the advantage with Sri Ramakrishna is that we believe that he is the Sarva Deva Devi Swarupaya Sri Ramakrishnaya. That's the prayer. Because he performed so many sadhanas, he gave so many mantras of so many deities, infinite number of people. So we feel that he has the vibrations of all the devas and devis. So if there is a difficulty to accept Sri Ramakrishna, we have to remember that since he represents all the deities, he can be accepted as an Ishta without any difficulty. And intuitively also, the presidents and all the, if starting from Brahmananda, they have intuitively received, not only seen the, given the mantras of the different deities who finally merge into Sri Ramakrishna. So he is Sarva Deva Devi Swarupa, according to the Ramakrishna tradition, because he did not, though he worshipped Kali, if you read the great master, that's why even before spiritual initiation, we ask the people to at least read the whole great master, because there we get a clear idea of who our Ishta is, whose mantra we are going to get. Without that, it is very, very difficult to have faith. So we have to understand the tradition, understand the person. As Buddha said, Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. But who is this Buddha? What is that state of Buddha which I try to reach? So he says, Dharmam Sharanam Gacchami. I surrender to the Dharma that he has started. That is the teachings that he gave. And then he says, Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. Buddha knew that after I go, when they don't get the real Buddha, the physical Buddha, they have to rely on two things. One is my teachings and the Sangha that I have started to preserve the purity of the teaching. So these three mantras are valid for every Sangha or every tradition. So I'll take your leave. Yeah. A great talk on mantra. Do you have some questions? Though I can verbally ask. You want to ask verbally? Okay. Oh, you have typed, so it is fine. Essentially, the mantra has a purifying effect for the human being. At some point, can the system involuntarily continue the spandana? Definitely. It is known as ajapa japa, where you come to a stage where you don't have to consciously make any effort. It is like some people, you see, after repeating for a long time, everything becomes autonomous. How has man, why does man breathe or the heart beat spontaneously? Nobody teaches us. Because the heart has been beating in a particular rate for years and years, it has become a habit. Now it has become spontaneous. But Rajoga says yogis by their willpower can stop this heart. That is what happens in Samadhi. But with the verbal pranayama, with the constant repetition, you can definitely induce a state where you don't have to put any effort to repeat the japa. There are so many instances. As Holy Mother said, the tick-tock of the clock, just see how it is going on, tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Eternally it seems to be going on. Only once you have to give, of course, otherwise if it's an electronic clock, it will go eternally till the battery goes out. So also, the ajapa japa, which ajapa means without any conscious effort, when the vibrations spontaneously rise in the consciousness, in the heart, it becomes rhythmic and it goes on and on. The spandana or the vibrations continue. Definitely involuntarily it will continue, but it will take a lot of practice to achieve that state. First, let us do consciously. So that is the one which actually enlivens, makes the mantra living. If it is living, then only if it comes involuntarily, it is of some use. Otherwise, mechanical repetition will not help. So I'll take your leave now. Please try to attend the retreat tomorrow. We have two very good speakers, Swami Satyeshanandji and Swami Muktidanandji, who will be speaking on two different aspects of Sri Ramakrishna. Please check your WhatsApp. The link that I have given is the final link. Don't go to the old message. And also the YouTube link which I am sending soon. In case you are not able to enter Zoom, you try the YouTube link. You can hear the talks. Yes. Huh?